Welcome to Keep Going, a podcast about failure and success, hosted by John Biggs. Every week, we talk to an amazing person about a time they failed and what they learned. And remember, when you're going through hell, keep going.
Welcome back to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. Today on the show I have Adam Leeb. He's the founder, CEO of Astra House, which makes the free writing tool. I've been following you, Adam, for, I guess, a decade now. I remember the first one. It was super interesting. Now you have multiple models, but I want to talk about this journey that you've been on for the past 10 years, making tools for writers, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here. And our connection's gone on a long way at this point.
Yeah, I literally remember the first one. I think I had it in for review, and then I bought one. I sat with it for a little while, but I think I couldn't quite get I couldn't quite survive. Why don't you tell folks what it?
Yeah, so I created a product called the FreeWrite, which is now a brand. We have 3 products within that brand. They're all part of this distraction-free writing tool line. So the original seed of the idea came out of a conversation about distraction-free software. And I thought software's okay, but that doesn't really solve this problem because everyone that uses that software knows that in the back of their head, they can just turn off that software. This happened back in 2014, this initial conversation. And I thought, well, what if we made a dedicated distraction-free writing tool that was all in one? It had a mechanical keyboard, so you'd have the best possible writing typing experience. Had this great e-ink screen like a Kindle because they're so great outdoors, they're low on power, easy on the eyes. It doesn't feel like you're looking at another screen. And then you could sync it up with the cloud. And so that was the kernel of that idea that we launched in 2014 as part of a Kickstarter. And now 10 years later, we have this great, incredible community. We have 3 core products. And yeah, we've been just doing our thing in this space for a while now.
Now, why do you think you survived? I mean, a lot of hardware companies have either been sold or kind of like went under. There was a big push for hardware companies back in 2014, right around when you started hardware startups. Why did you guys survive?
Well, I think there's a few factors at play. Both, one is that we're not VC backed, so we weren't part of the craze, and we didn't get caught up in this just spending money to acquire customers at all costs situation. We're a niche company, and frankly, I think there was a few just important principles that I tried to rely on in terms of how to maintain a sustainable business, how to become a sustainable business. One of the things that I always kept front of mind really was companies don't die from having too little inventory. They almost always die from having too much. And so, especially in the first 5 or 6 years, I was very conservative about purchasing inventory, which caused several times we went out of stock. It only increased the excitement in our community that people wanted the product more when we went out of stock. We didn't end up running out of money. We became profitable for the first time in 2020. So it did take us quite some time, but we've been profitable since then. And just paying attention to cash flow and being really super methodical and practicing good cash management. That's what we've always been trying to do. And here we are.
Tell me about how you manage your community, because you do have a huge, like writers have their own communities, obviously, but you have a community based around just this tool.
Yeah, we do. And it's gone through different iterations over the years. We at one point had our own site that had like a community forum. Now we don't have that anymore. We just interact with people on Discord and Facebook and Reddit. And so I'm pretty active in the Reddit community. I think it's funny because for a long time, I was a little bit nervous about it. I was thinking, if I make myself known, then people are going to start pinging me all the time and being upset about customer service issues. And it actually just hasn't happened. And now that I've gotten over that hump, I can actually just offer value and try to clear things up and, help people if they have customer service issues or point them to our customer help desk. But I think, that's just one level of interaction with the community. We're very active on social media, talking to people there. So it's tough because there's so many different platforms. Everybody's coming in with a different angle, whether they want to talk about shipments or they want to talk about their writing process. There's just a lot of different topics of conversation. So frankly, I think we just try to do our best and meet people where they are.
Were there any times when you were worried that things were going to work out?
Oh, well, I think every entrepreneur has that existential dread all the time. I think it goes in waves. I don't think there was ever Well, yes, there's been many moments. COVID was quite nerve-wracking. There was a time when we had to switch factories in 2017, sort of rather suddenly. And that was very nerve-wracking. Ended up being fine, but there are things like that. We've had big change. We've had changes in our staff. We've had personal life things happen, both myself and with our team. Yeah, in the span of 10 years, a lot of stuff happens. Um, I think this is also part of the big challenge with startups is when you're really small, you're super sensitive to anything that could happen. Whereas when you get bigger, it's you can weather bigger and bigger storms as you get bigger. And so we're still small, but we're big enough that there are certain things that they're just not going to kill us like they would if it happened in year one or year two. So there's always challenges.
Is there anything? So that you've lost that factory. What happened during that factory loss?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. My factory counterpart, who I talked with weekly, let's say, he called me one night, and he was in Hong Kong and said, "Adam, are you sitting down?" And I'm like, "Oh God, do I have to?" And he's like, "Yeah, we just got notified that the factory was basically sold, and the production run that you have happening right now is going to be the last one in this factory, and we're working on a plan, but I want to let you know, like by the end of the year, and this was probably, I want to say like October or something like that. By the end of the year, like this factory is going to be shut down. Talk about something you'd probably want to sit down to hear, right? I think because not only was it something that there's just so much unknown, right? What does that mean? This factory is in China. Can we get our tooling that we spent $100,000 on? Can we get it out? Can we move it? Can we just transfer the relationship from those vendors to a new assembly contract manufacturer? Do I need to go there? Do I need to hire a fixer that's going to be able to do all this on the ground stuff? Am I going to be able to work with my existing team? There's also talk of that existing team maybe getting bought or migrating to a bigger company or a different company, and then just bringing the relationships like us with them. And so there's just all this uncertainty that ends up getting put on your plate. We then had to go through the process of basically requoting the product. So we went out to several other factories, requoting, looking at all the pricing, going back and forth. It takes a lot of time and energy to do that. And these are new relationships, so you have to meet people and get to know them. It ended up being okay, which was amazing. And frankly, part of why we were able to kind of just continue without anyone really even noticing that the group that managed our products, they managed to get themselves acquired by another company. And so it was a relatively seamless process where they just kind of transitioned all of the documentation and the vendor relationships. But it was a very scary time, and it could have gone a completely different way. And then who knows, that could have been the end of us for all we know. So thankfully that's behind us. And now if that were to happen again, it would definitely be a lot of work and it'd be nerve-wracking, but we could get through it. And so yeah, for something like that to happen in sort of the first year or two of business, especially when you were just getting going with a new product, could have been a killer.
Well, that kind of institutional memory, right? You guys built that up over 10 years, which is valuable. Is there any time in the early years when you said, "Hey, maybe we'll just do this last run and call it a day"?
That's not in my nature.
Okay.
I don't think. Yeah, we could have, I guess, but this whole product started from essentially the concept going viral. And so it was a completely different experience than my previous venture, where it felt like what I was doing before this, it really felt like I was kind of pushing a product onto the market and trying to figure out like what resonated. Whereas it resonated immediately. We put out this concept. It wasn't even fully fleshed out. It was just, a distraction-free writing tool. It looked a certain way, and people just went crazy for it. And so those first 2, 3, 4 years in business, it really felt like we were just trying to catch up to demand and catch up to what people wanted out of this concept. And so, yeah, I suppose we could have just said, "Oh, we got it," or "That's it." But it was so exciting and invigorating that you very quickly are like, "Oh, well, how can we keep going? Like, how can we keep improving on this? How can we, make the next product? How can we think about this more broadly? And how can we serve these writers more?" So, and I just love making consumer products. That's really what it comes down to. I love consumer technology. I love consumer products. The fact that I'm able to go from literally a sketch or an idea, just a concept, and go all the way through the industrial design process, mechanical design, electrical design, firmware, software, to a finished product and see it in people's hands. I mean, what a great gift. So I'm very gracious that I'm able to do that, and it's my company. And so being able to see a vision and have it be super opinionated and not feel like it's some corporate kind of hodgepodge designed by committee thing, I just feel like, yeah, I should keep going.
At what point did you know that this was viral? Did you know at the Kickstarter point? Because I think this is a really interesting point for you. When this first came out, you blew everybody's minds, right? Hey, I'm sick and tired of the internet, and that was even when the internet wasn't as bad as it is now. I want something that I could just type on, and it's going to look really cool. Everybody wants the mechanical keyboard. You basically hit. It was a perfect storm of desire, really, in your community. Did you know that it would hit immediately when you pressed publish on Kickstarter, or was it based on the feedback that you got?
You definitely never know. So we had some hints. It went viral before the Kickstarter. We were able to get 100,000+ people to our little simple WordPress website.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had about 8,000 emails collected thus far at the time that we hit publish on the Kickstarter campaign. So 8,000 emails from essentially organic traffic. Not essentially, it was all organic earned media traffic. All the traffic was coming from press, folks like you that were interested in the project, commenting on it, posting about it, saying, wow, what a wild, crazy concept. Check out this thing. So we knew there was a lot of people interested. The big thing that we were very concerned about, and that kept the confidence much lower than I would have liked, is that we didn't talk about price. And we knew that price was going to be a hot topic. It's a weird product to go out with because it has this, I call it retro future, but clearly there's retro pieces of it. And so people see it differently. Some people see just the retro portion and are thinking, oh, well, old technology equals cheap. And some people think, well, this is like a new thing and it's like designery. And so like, that's going to be maybe expensive. But there was a lot of uncertainty around how people would feel once we announced the price. And I remember thinking like, well, I know this thing's going to cost a lot to make. We have to actually develop it. We have to, hire engineers. We have to design it. We have to buy tooling and go to China. How are we going to what's the absolute maximum price that we can possibly stomach to go out with this thing without feeling like total, terrible people? And I think the funny thing is, I think our early bird pricing was somewhere in the high 200s. Maybe even the first 10 was 249 or something like that. And I just remember at the time thinking oh my God, $250, we're going to ask for this thing. That's going to be so painful. I know we're going to get ripped on the internet for it. And now we sell that same product for over $600. And so we had to go out with some kind of reasonable price, and $200 is not a reasonable price for that product. We know that very well now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think once the Kickstarter launched and we saw literally the dollars going in faster than we could refresh the page, we're like, oh, well, we hit 200,000 in the first 20 hours of the campaign. We're like, oh God, we can't even pay attention to marketing this campaign anymore. We got to completely shift gears and just figure out how to make the thing. And again, it just felt like we had to the first few years was just catching up to the market. So why do I didn't really spend any brain cells trying to think well, how big could the market be? Cause it just felt like there was more and we weren't even serving that piece that we were talking to, let alone the rest of the world. I think at some point, what we now call the Smart Typewriter, that original core product, I felt okay, this is a good product, but I don't know if it's something that we're going to be able to have. It's not going to be the cash cow of our organization that's going to be able to sustain a big business. And so that's eventually what led us to Traveler. And Traveler has been a great product for us. It's our best seller. It still delivers on the core competency of being a distraction-free writing tool. It's a little bit more palatable from a design sense for a lot of people because of the just folding kind of laptop-y nature, even though it is quite different. Yeah, I think if you want to, when did I know that it was going, this company could be a thing? It was when we launched, we could see the dollars coming in right away. But then okay, when when did I realize like this could actually be like something that I work on for a long time and could be the foundation of a much bigger endeavor? I think after we launched Traveler and
Hmm.
seeing what that could do, here we are.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting story. I think a lot of people don't feel that product market fit, right? Immediately, and you got to feel it as soon as even before you started, which is really cool. I think that's what a lot of folks miss when they do different kinds of startups, especially startups that, I don't know, millions of people want because it seems like a great idea. Um,
Yeah.
what was the impetus behind the Traveler? And you also have the Alpha one, this a smaller one right now.
Yeah. Traveler, I think, again, it was thinking about a slightly different usage scenario. So not that people wanted a different experience, but there were just some different design considerations with the Traveler. The name Traveler, you can take it anywhere you want to go, right? So there's a lot of people that don't have like a designated writing place, right? And the original FreeWrite sort of requires it. I mean, it's not like, I don't know, we kind of talk about it as it's this stationary object. I mean, it's only 4 pounds. There was there was a time not too long ago when most laptops were over 4 pounds. So it's still fully portable. It has a handle built in, but
Well,
um,
it was a big thing. It would take up space on your desk, right?
it definitely takes up space on your desk. And so we just thought, okay, like there's two different modalities here. There's people that kind of have this more specific writing location, and then there's people that just want to be able to write on the go or be able to travel, literally travel, and take their writing machine with them. And so we just thought there was like a nice marriage of these two concepts, and we could still deliver on that with essentially the same kind of experience, just with a slightly different keyboard, a slightly different trade-off on the form factor, the weight. The original is made out of aluminum, then the Traveler is made out of plastic, so it's a lot lighter, still very strong, but it's just, again, it's just some different design considerations.
And the Alpha is the brand new one, right?
Alpha's a new one. So we did a crowdfunding campaign that we finally shipped January 24. So like almost exactly a year ago. And again, still playing off this same exact distraction-free nature, some slightly different design considerations, also trying to bring the price down, which we've done over the years. And taking all of our learnings about supply chain and about how people use the product and just trying to simple it into sort of the essence of what this concept could be. And so that's what that's what Alpha is. And that's done well too.
I mean, it feels like back when you first started, marketing something like this was probably much different than it is today. You had the blogs, you had all the news sites who were just picking stuff up constantly, and you actually got traffic from them. I think like the TechCrunch bump was probably, I don't know, 10,000, 20,000 page views, whereas now it's maxes out at about 8,000. So what would you do differently, and what did you do differently for the Alpha than you did for the first one, for the typewriter?
Yeah, we had the great benefit of press being just an incredible resource for us early on and throughout our entire time. We've have this really nice side effect, the fact that we're not just making tech products, but making tech products for writers. And so
Hmm.
naturally writers want to cover us and talk about writing, even if it's in not just tech, but like we were getting covered in all kinds of stuff. I mean, interesting magazines and international stuff as well. So press has been an incredible partnership for us. You're totally right, though. Over the years, the impact that getting mentions in tech blogs like has completely changed. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is because our brand also like grew over time. So we're able to do things now differently than how we would have been able to do it back then. Certainly, like, I mean, we pay the meta tax and do a lot of paid advertising these days. We do a lot more organic content as well. I think just trying to continue to innovate and be where people are. I mean, we do brand partnerships, but I don't know. I think marketing is tough because it always feels like, well, we could be doing more, right? Because it's endless. It really, should we be working with influencers? Oh, we should be working with, just get a couple or maybe even one, super A-list writer that's like a, spokesperson that uses our product, or should we be, sponsoring podcasts? It's just like, you can get so overwhelmed so quickly. At the end of the day, I think really what drives a lot of our business is just writers talking to other writers. That is super meaningful to us. And the beautiful thing about writers is like they are part of communities, whether they're writing communities or reading communities, they talk to each other. And so that's just that's always going to be, I think, a huge part of our DNA when it comes to marketing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know I'm going to shoot myself in the foot, but it sounds like the real answer is just to like produce nice pictures of the thing and put it on Instagram. That's literally how I found out about this most recently, because it's the blogs just don't cut it anymore. And like advertising on a podcast is like, I don't know, sounds like talking about a movie on the radio. You don't really get the you don't really get the special effects as well.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
it's interesting. Yeah,
I mean,
it's a hard problem, right? For something like a boutique product like this to sell to a general audience is fairly difficult.
it certainly is. There's some strategy there. The aesthetic is really important, not just from a how does this make people feel when they use it, but also one of my design principles is that the industrial design, the aesthetic of the product should communicate the purpose of the product. And so maybe that sounds obvious to you, but actually it's quite opposite of how a lot of things are designed these days. There's a trend, I mean, maybe more than a trend, but lots of products are designed to be very minimal. Like the purpose of that product is just internal to the product, and if you just saw it, it's meant to blend into the space, and you're not really supposed to know what it is. And I really do I try to not do that and avoid that at all costs, because frankly, I don't like it as an aesthetic, but also it doesn't sell, right? Like if you're trying to make something innovative, it needs to both be innovative, but also needs to look different.
Mm-hmm.
People connect things that look different with things that are different, right? So if it looks quite interesting, like noteworthy or provocative, well, then people are going to be interested in it. That's just kind of the nature of it. And so I'm very intentional in terms of how I think about it should look, because if you can't get people to be interested in it, visually speaking, it just makes it that much harder to get people interested in it, like from a functional perspective.
Interesting. What's next for the company?
Well, we just announced Word Runner. So this is our first standalone mechanical keyboard, Bluetooth. We're super excited about it. We've been working on it for literally years off and on. It was sort of, we had a project and then we half launched it, and then we're like, took it down. It wasn't really matching what we wanted. We were at CES a couple weeks ago and I demoed it at the Kickstarter booth, which was awesome. So that's definitely one of our big products in development right now. It's well underway. We've got a lot of other stuff in the hopper as well, continuing to build on our core functionality, distraction-free writing tools. So yeah, we've got some good stuff. I'd say stay tuned, but Word Runner is definitely our big thing, and we'll be doing a Kickstarter campaign soon.
Yeah, I like that you guys are just sticking with this writer concept. It's I'm glad you're not getting into, I don't know, t-shirts or something like that, or weird vases or something.
No t-shirts or vases.
Yeah,
vases, but there may be some other. There's some other new stuff. That's
okay.
That we're
A
working
notebook.
on too.
You could do a notebook.
We could do a notebook. Yeah,
it could be a notebook. Adam, thank you for this. This is great for me, because I get to hear from your mouth exactly how this all went down, which sounds it's been quite a ride for you.
Absolutely. Thanks, John. I really appreciate you bringing me on here.
All right, so Adam Leeb from Astro House, check it out. Word Runner the reservation page is open for folks who want to reserve it on Kickstarter. Astro, what is it getfreewrite.com now?
Yep. Wordrunner.getfreewrite.com if you want to check out the landing page for Word Runner.
Perfect. All right, so this has been Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. I'm John Biggs. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to Keep Going, a podcast about success and failure. Remember, Keep Going is entirely listener supported. If you're listening to this, please head over to keepgoingpod.com, where you can subscribe to the podcast for as little as $5 a month. This is a labor of love, and every little bit helps. Thanks for listening.